My students are bored out of their gourd when we do calendar. You can only talk about days of the week and months of the year for so long, right? Right. And wrong. Calendar talk can be way more than just the calendar. It's become an essential part of my beginning of class. Not just the beginning of the year, but all year long. Sure, you might do it every day in level 1, but not in a level 2 class, right? Wrong. What about level 3? Yep. No way you still do it in level 4. You betcha. Tell me more. As you may know, my channel is focused on providing comprehensible input through cuentos, canciones y comunidad, stories, song, and community. Now, calendar talk is one way that I use to build community in my classroom, but not if you're just focusing on the basics. Of course, you can start off the year talking about the date and the weather and the temperature, but to really go further with it, you're going to need to add other activities to the calendar. This is where I apply a 3-part concept that I call expand, extend, and deepen. These 3 ideas can really be applied to any concept. So keep that in mind as I give you some examples dealing with calendar talk. So the first idea is expand. Expand means to take the activities we have, the current ones, and make them more. For example, we can do 3 things. We can either review, predict, or compare. Now, if we review, that means, taking something from the past and reviewing it to see what they remember. So bringing back in old concepts. So if we're talking about the weather right now, it's hot out. We could ask, okay, what was it like yesterday? What was it like last Monday? What was it like on your birthday? Also, we can then predict. So yesterday was hot. Today is hot. What do you think tomorrow is going to be? So we can, if you're into focusing on verb tenses, we can bring in the past verbs, the past tense. We can bring in the present tense and, of course, the future tense there. We can also, of course, make comparisons. So was yesterday hotter than today? Is today going to be cooler than tomorrow? It snowed today. Is it going to snow tomorrow? And if so, when is it going to snow more, today or tomorrow? So there's a lot of things you can do there just trying to expand. Now I want to share with you a couple of ways you can extend calendar talk. Extend means to add in new activities, and that's where I feel like a lot of people get stuck. They're not sure what else to go in there. So if we extend something, one thing I like to do is compare. Again, we're using that compare concept, our area with other parts of the world. All right, we're talking about extending calendar talk now. And one of the ways I do this is I have some classroom jobs. That's another important thing that I talk about and discuss in other videos in creating community. A couple important classroom jobs that I have are the sports director and the events director. Now, these 2 students are responsible each day for looking up on our school calendar, which is usually online, um, the sports and events that are going on that day, and their job is to share with the rest of the class. They do this in the target language, and there's a slide here that has a little bit of scaffolding for them that at the beginning of the year, they definitely use word for word off of there. And by the end of the year, not so much anymore. So if you look on the bottom right side there, it says here deportes, that's sports. And then that student might talk about which practices there are, prácticas, or which games. Are there tournaments or are there any other competitions? What sporting events do we have that day? That you can also look at reviewing, predicting, and comparing with this kind of stuff as well. Because you can talk about, well, who had practice yesterday? How did the game go yesterday? Who's going to win the game tonight for predictions? Or you can compare. If you want to be really risque, you could say, which basketball team is better? Our boys' basketball team or girls' basketball team? I probably don't suggest doing that one. Same thing applies for activities. We can talk about, are there any concerts or musicals or plays? Are we getting out early? Are there conferences? You can read here. Is there an assembly or any other meetings going on during this day as well? So here's another way to expand calendar talk. we can talk about the weather around the world. And this slide I borrowed heavily from Spanish with Stephanie on Teachers Pay Teachers. My slide's slightly different, but if you want the same basic concept, she has this available on her page. Now, what I really like about this is we're not just talking about the weather in our own location, but we're talking about it in and around the Spanish speaking world. Or you would do it in the French speaking world, German speaking world, and so on. What we can do now is we can compare and contrast, we can predict. For example, we might ask, what's the weather like in Uruguay? Which in this case is number 20 here. The slide is amazing because if we click on the Uruguayan flag, it will take us to weather.com in Spanish and we can check exactly what's going on right now without having to do any kind of searching. It's just linked right away. So in Montevideo, which is the capital of Uruguay, it is 50 grados, es despejado, and it'll give us the temperature, the maximum and minimum temperatures, the highs and lows, and we can find out all about it right here, all in the target language. So what's really great about that is then we can talk about a different one the next day and then the next day, or we can go back and review like, oh, was it hotter in Uruguay or was it hotter in Argentina yesterday? Or we could even get into concepts like, ooh, why is it so cold in Uruguay when it's blazing hot here? Oh, that's right. They're in a different hemisphere than us. They have the opposite seasons. There's so much we can do to expand the topic of weather just beyond what's on the calendar. And of course, I'll mention here up here, there's a little globe icon. If they're not super familiar geographically where that's at, we can click on that. And then we can, type in, for example, Uruguay and go there, find out more about where we're talking about Montevideo, zoom in, zoom out, figure out where we're at in comparison, and so on. Another way that I extend the calendar talk is by talking about interesting and weird holidays around the world. So these celebrations could be just about anything, but the twist that I really like is using circumlocution to have them guess what the holiday is. So if you look at this scaffolding slide here, it has many categories of things they could use and other really helpful phrases to use circumlocution, a way to talk around something that they don't know to try to guess what it is. So let's start off with some very general things like, is it a person? Is it a place? An event? Is it a description? That kind of thing. And they can only ask me yes or no questions in the target language until finally a student guesses it, or I decide that there's a certain time limit and I give it to them. Some of these examples could be El Día Nacional de los Rascacielos, which is National Skyscraper Day. And a lot of these slides here, I've got little links like, oh, the United States or in the world. Then we'll click on that and then take a look. Oh, here's actually the tallest skyscraper in the world, which is the Burj Khalifa. We could do the same thing with the United States, possibly. There's other holidays like World Redhead Day. And if you'll notice on my slides here, there's a plus symbol and an arrow symbol. The plus symbol means that there's also a reading here in the target language that we could look at and maybe find out more about the holiday, especially for upper levels. The arrow has a video link to something sometimes in the target language and sometimes in English, depending on what I was able to find. Now, another great one is International Trabalenguas Day, so tongue twister day. Having them try saying Barangari Cutimícuaro, which happens to be an actual town in Michoacán, Mexico, or things like como poco, coco como, poco coco compro, is kind of just a little bit of extra fun with the language. And they're using the target language to talk about that day, to use circumlocution. We're incorporating a lot of different things to extend calendar talk. Another one that really can get a conversation going is this one, El Día Nacional de Comida Rápida. Now, by itself, that's not a big conversation getter, but as soon as you ask them, what's your favorite fast food restaurant? Ooh, be ready for some strong opinions. Other days could be like El Día Nacional del Popote. That's National Straw Day. And you'll notice around the Spanish speaking world, popote isn't recognized everywhere. You might hear bombilla, pajita, pajilla, sorbete, pitillo. Those kind of words are common depending on what country you're talking about. You may get some students that say, well, that's dumb. Why do they have so many words for the same thing? Why can't they just say it one way? Of course, I got a slide ready for that. Looking at these items, there are so many ways to say each of these things. I don't have time to go into it right now, but the first one could be things like hoagie, submarine sandwich, grinder, um, and so on. Or the next picture is tennis shoes, gym shoes, tennis shoes, athletic shoes, whatever we're talking about, and so on and so forth. Another special day could be like National Spouses Day. We could talk about the different ways that spouses and families are made up. Here is one of my favorite ones that I've included, World Compliment Day. Now, just talking about compliments themselves isn't too much, but I do like to build that sense of community and sometimes take the lesson beyond just the language. And so, what I have students do is you can see here, there's a picture of some sticky notes. We exactly do that. I have the students make 2 compliments on sticky notes, and depending on the level, sometimes in English, sometimes in the target language, and I asked them to do this. On one sticky note, I want you to write a compliment for someone you know well, a friend of yours, boyfriend, girlfriend, a sibling, a teacher, whoever. On the second sticky note, I would like you to make a compliment for somebody that you think isn't probably going to get one otherwise. So somebody that, maybe they don't have any friends in the Spanish classes, or maybe they don't have any friends at all. So come up with something that you can honestly say about them, something you've realized or noticed about them that you can give them. And when you're done, show me the 2 compliments, and then I want you to go out to the lockers and place them on their lockers. I usually have them show me because only once in however many years I've been doing this have I had one that was even iffy, but it's better to cover your bases than not. Finally, we want to be able to deepen, right? We're going to be deepening. And this just means we're going to add more complexity to whatever activity we're doing. Here are 3 ways that I kind of try to do this on having dealing with calendar talk at least. One is adding in hypothetical situations. For example, asking the students, if you could only have one season year round, what would it be? Or if today is the 21st and it's a Monday, what day of the week is the 27th? So hypothetical situations where their students have to do a little bit more thinking, a little bit more with the language than just reading off the calendar up on the board. Now, we can also take a look at controversial topics. And when I mean controversial, I don't mean things like the death penalty, abortion, the presidential election. If you're comfortable doing that in the classroom, go for it. But I mean controversial like there's going to be differences of opinion. For example, which one is better? To have a birthday during the school year or a birthday during the summer? Students can really get into that and have a debate about which one's better. Like, oh, I don't have to worry about going to school on my birthday, or, oh, there's nobody around to celebrate my birthday with me. Or, for example, are snow days a good thing or a bad thing? Some students love them, some hate them. We could talk about, oh, it makes the school year longer, or hey, we get a break in the middle of the year when it's really dragging. There's a lot of things we can do to take those controversial topics and still apply it to calendar talk. And then finally is the golden oldie, asking why. So let's say we just talked about those concepts. Which season is better? You could then ask why. Or is it better to have a birthday during the summer or the winter? The summer, is it better to have a birthday during the summer or the school year? Why? Are snow days a good thing? Why? Right? So that's another great way to deepen any little activity, whether it's calendar talk or not. You just heard about the 3-part concept called expand, extend, and deepen that I use with calendar talk. Now, this Hoberman sphere, is what it's called, is a perfect illustration of how this works with CI. So when we expand, extend, and deepen the amount of comprehensible input we're using, it grows exponentially, right? It's so much more in every direction than what we started with. All right, please comment with any aha moments or any questions you might have in the comment section. Also, what CI topics do you want to know more about? If it's something that I am familiar with, I'll make a video about it. So please let me know in the comments below. If you want more videos like this, please subscribe, like, share this video with other teachers that you think could benefit from seeing it. Calendar talk is one of the many ways that I build community in my classroom. If you want to find out why community is probably the most important thing you can do in your classroom, click on the video up here. Thank you for your dedication to your students and all that you do in the classroom. Because as you and I both know, World language teachers teach the world more than language. Hasta pronto.